Hey guys, my name is Bando, this is Brexit Bando. We didn't get a Heresy Thursday today, again, but instead I'll be talking about continuing this little series, I suppose, of what I would do in a miniature refresh, and today is the Grey Knights. The Grey Knights are an interesting faction. They've been around since Rogue Trader, and they have had several kind of range refreshes over the years, but the last one has lasted quite some time. Now, I'm a big fan of the Grey Knights as a concept. The idea of the forces of good basically battling the literal spawn of hell kind of resonates with a gentleman of my disposition. And I think that the faction itself is ripe for refresh, for getting a load of really cool models, and I think I'm going to go through that with you guys. Now, the first thing is, I'm not entirely sure if the Grey Knights should remain as their own unique faction. That being said, they did originally come around, or mostly come around, 3rd edition in the Demon Hunters Codex, so I'm not sure if they should stay as an independent codex or simply just get rolled into the Inquisition. I think possibly that might be the best idea, but it would leave with the Inquisition having a pretty chunky book. So, as always, let's start with the Combat Patrol and see what we're working with. I'm not a huge fan of this Combat Patrol, for one oversized, glaring reason, and that is the Dread Knight. I think this should be something similar to... I think it should be basically 10 power armoured guys. I'm okay with the Librarian, I'm okay with the Terminators. Drop this down to a Dreadnought, I think, would be a better option. And adjust the price, obviously. I think it gives you a little bit of everything, and is a great basis for starting for an army. I just think this Dread Knight is too big a model, and it has its own issues that I will cover shortly. Other than that, I quite like this. I think maybe we need to get a new Librarian model, one that is actually in Aegis power armor and looks the part as being a part of the Grey Knights. Not that this isn't a good model, I've actually always liked this model, but I just think we need something that's in Aegis Terminator armour that looks a bit more on point for the Grey Knights, and give him, you know, a Nemesis Force weapon. So, talking of Nemesis, we have the Dread Knight. And I'm not a big fan of the Dread Knight for several reasons. One, I think the general idea of the baby carrier, as it were, really dumb. You have slapped a guy into what is a very advanced warsuit and left him relatively open in the front. I don't like it because it's not very poseable. And I just think overall the model is a bit silly. However, I think it's savable. Now, personally, what I would do, and this is just personally, this, you know, feel free to tell me it's a stupid idea, is I would like to move the Dread Knight into a position where it falls between Dreadnought and Knight, in the fact that it is the relic used to maintain the broken body of Grandmasters. And it is a Dreadnought in that sense. And what I would like is that it uses technology from the Knights, so that, you know, make it almost a special character, as it were. And the Dread Knight would become an amalgamation of all of the Grandmasters that have come before him. And slowly they would slip into sort of like into the pile, and they are little more than a biological component into the machine at that point, and everything else is just, you know, Angron comes storming onto the field, and then this thing like steps up and it's like, oh, I'm going to whip you like I did before, boy, on, you know, Aegis 7, and realises, oh god, this is actually the, you know, the Grandmaster I faced 600 years ago, talking to me, not the most recent one. And, you know, I think, you know, make it a bit more interesting, make the rules a bit more fun. And realistically, the biggest thing for me is the model needs to just be really poseable. We need to get that posability in the legs and the arms, and it needs hands with the fingers out. It needs different weapons. It needs to be having, you need to be able to put it into cool dueling poses. I don't like the update that they've got coming for it, where they've just given it a mace. So yeah, that's a little disappointing. Other than that, just remove it. I think it's a bit silly, to be honest. So Castle and Crow, the most recent update to the faction, is perfect for what is going on. He's still in Mark 6 armour, and he's just slightly upscaled. I like it, it's good, that's exactly what I want from the faction. I don't think we need to throw in Primaris stuff. I don't think we need to throw in any of the Primaris vehicles. I think these guys can avoid the Primaris argument 100%, because none of their equipment generally is tied to who they are, or all their equipment is tied to who they are. None of their equipment is effectively Firstborn or Primaris, as the regular Marines have. It's like, a Land Raider is a Land Raider, so they can still have it. So yes, I really like him, and I think this is a good template for the level of detail and the scale that we should be looking at for power armoured Grey Knights. The Terminators, I love the design of these Terminators. The only complaint I have is wrist-mounted bolters. I've never liked wrist-mounted bolters. I think they're silly, and I think they're too clunky, and I just don't think they work. Make them smaller, make them more advanced looking, so they look like they're part of the gauntlet. They don't just look like someone's clipped the magazine and pistol grip off a Stormbolter. And we can talk. Give them individual barrels, make them look a bit more interesting, because these guys, they're just a hunk of plastic you have to drill out, and it doesn't look great. Every time I see them when someone's replaced them with plastic hard tubing, it looks 100 times better. I would say more dynamic poses. They're already pretty dynamic, but yeah, a little bit more dynamic poses. I know people hate them, but get those legs up on tactical rocks so they are standing in interesting battle poses. Give us lots of two-handed fighting poses with their staffs. And all in all, just basically make them bigger. The aesthetic of them is absolutely fine. I just want them slightly taller and a bit more dynamic, really. I'm not a huge fan of some of the other weapon options, like the falchions. I just think aesthetically the halberds are the best. They look better, but that's just me. I'm a stickler for the art where they are all carrying the halberds. But, having options is nice, and I don't have a problem with them having options. I just, hope they look good. The command squad being in there is absolutely fine, and actually I think that's a really good thing to do, is upgrade kits for basic squads. We do that in the Heresy a lot, and I really like it. So something like this, pretty much spot on. Exactly the same for just an upscaled Terminator kit would be bueno. And, I maybe a bit more dynamic pose on the banner. He's absolutely planting it in place and he's not moving. Nice big two-handed sword for the guy in charge, something like that would be really cool. Grandmaster Vald. I just find a lot of these characters really, really static and boring. I can't remember if these guys are plastic model or if he's only plastic. Yes. Look how that's cut. That's awful. Yeah, so just make him a little bit bigger, a bit more dynamic in the pose. Make them look like old warriors who are, very dangerous, because beware old men in fields where they die young. And just make them look heroic. That's, I think, the most important thing for the Grey Knights, is that every character needs to look like a hero from a painting. Caldor Draco really needs an update. This guy is still resin. Yeah, a nice like running pose would be good with him. Like he's appearing out of the warp and just bursting into combat. and maybe a face that doesn't look so miserable, you know. But all in all, I mean, his style is consistent, and I like that. So just make him bigger and more dynamic. The brother captain needs a nice multi-part kit. We need 2 of them. We need one in power armor and one in Terminator armor. And again, it just needs more options. This was a metal kit. I don't know if it still is. No, it's now resin. Yeah, this just needs, like, look at the Primaris captains and lieutenant kits, something like that. You know, nice dynamic pose, lots of different options for war gear, and then do the same again for the power armor faction. The power armored guys, I just need them making a bit bigger. Make them a bit bigger, and again the issue with the Stormbolters. I mean, they do look so silly. I'd contemplate moving them to their backpacks. We've seen it on a couple of models where they have backpack mounted weapons that track via targeters on the helmets, and I think that might look better for the power armoured troops. And that would let them focus on their melee weapons and would be a bit more interesting. And it's the same again for these guys. And these guys. I like these guys. I like the Interceptor Squad. I like the backpacks. I like how you know, technologically weird they look. And, you know, I like what they're doing here. I like the kind of idea of them and their setting. You know, what the idea of them just teleporting through. They're Imperial Warp Spiders. They're cool. Now, issues with the current range. All of the flyers are garbage. They all look like toys. I think the Grey Knights need something like the Corvus Black Star that is uniquely theirs. Something that is mean, silver, and ominous. You know, something with like cages on the outside for transporting prisoners. That just looks really, really nasty. The Redeemer, and by extension the Grey Knights version of the Redeemer, I think we just need a plastic upgrade set for Grey Knights vehicles, and that should cover the Rhino, it should cover the Land Raider, and anything that takes Land Raider and Rhino doors. The Dreadnought, we need to get a unique front plate for the Dreadnought, or we need a unique Dreadnought. They used to have this one, which was a Mark IV Castaferum Dreadnought from Forge World. They also had this upgrade, which was the Mark V Castaferum from Forge World. Either or, I don't mind. I think its own unique model completely in the styling of the Grey Knights would be better, especially if you get the old legs a bit poseable. Or even possibly something that is like a Contemptor Dreadnought to show that these guys have access to older archaic technologies, you know, lost technologies and advanced technologies. Doors, Forge World did a load of them. I think they would transfer really well to plastic, and I think it would, very much like the Sisters of Battle, give them really unique looking vehicles. You know, lots of flaming braziers and stuff. I'd also quite like to see possibly a bike unit. Even if it was just regular bikes or jet bikes. Jet bikes would be cool, but maybe not, because jet bikes in 40k really, in my opinion, should remain in 2 places, and that is the Custodes and Samael should be the only jet bikes. So maybe give these guys some marine-sized regular bikes, so we get that knightly, you know, look of, you know, lances on, you know, knights on their steeds, that sort of thing. I don't know about some sort of scout unit. Scouts generally kind of strike me as something that the Grey Knights would never do. You know, once you're in the field, you are a full brother. You're not going outside the fortress until you're ready, because the forces they're fighting aren't exactly the forgiving type. So yeah, maybe not scouts. but definitely a nice refresh. It's a solid range, it just needs bringing up to modern standards. I'd like to see a Land Raider variant with psi cannons and lots of psi cannons, flamers, multi-melters, something that's like a Land Raider Crusader or Redeemer, but just turned up to 11. Other than that, I don't think we need anything else from them. I think avoiding adding things like a chaplain would be good. And they don't really need anything from the Primaris range at all. I don't think it would fit. So yeah, a bit shorter than the last one, but that's generally my thoughts on the Grey Knights. They're a solid range, they just need a little bit of polish. I would probably separate the Interceptors and the Purgation Squad, or Purifier Squad, into two different sets, so that the Interceptor Squad can be in like really cool dynamic jumping poses. Maybe give them an alternate build with just jump packs, and then have the Purgation and Purifier Squads be the more foot soldier, down to earth, shooty and stabby squad. So let me know what you think. If you have any questions or suggestions, especially if you're a Grey Knight collector, let me know what you think. Pop it down in the comments. I like having all the comments from people. And as always, guys, have a great day. We are nearly there. One more day. One more day and it's the weekend. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. My name is Bando. Bye-bye.